Well, hello Canadian Campaholic. It is a gorgeous early April day now, and we're doing some awning cleaning today. I usually use Camco RV awning cleaner, but I ran out, so I've got a mixture of Dawn Power Wash, a little bit of Dawn soap, tiny little bit of bleach, and some water. And I've just scrubbed the awning, got it rolled in for 30 minutes, and then we'll roll it out, rinse it, and scrub it again, and see how we're getting on. But the purpose of today's video is not really to talk about awnings, it's to talk about the fridge. We've had an issue lately where the fridge is just freezing a lot of the things that are in it. Canned goods, milk is getting ice in it. And from watching some other videos around the internet, I think what's happened is the thermistor, I think it's called, which is the temperature sensor that runs from the back of the fridge inside and then it sits on the fins. I think it's quit. So we're going to take these panels off, try and find the control board where the thermistor connects, and then see if we can remove it from inside the fridge. It can be tricky on some of these units. I've heard some folks have to get RV techs to pull the whole fridge out to do this, but I'm hoping I've got enough access and that I can do this myself. So let's take things apart and see what's what. All right, so we're in the camper now. It's a little dirty in the fridge. I got to clean that out before we go camping. But on the back side of the fridge, this is our drip tray or drip hose, and I can see that there's a grommet, and the thermistor is coming through here. So what I got to do is go on the back side of the fridge, figure out where this opening is, and see if it's accessible. So basically, the thermistor, we could pull this clip off. It sits up inside this clip and has a little sensor in the end of it that tells the fridge whether it needs to be cooling or not. And I'm pretty sure that's failed, and that's why it just runs on max cool all the time. Now, I've heard people say that sometimes you can't really fish this through. You got to get an RV tech to pull the fridge, but I'm wondering if I could, if this opening is big enough, I could tape the sensor on the new thermistor to it and then use that to kind of pull it through and snake it through. My reason for looking at it today is I want to make sure that I've got the right connectors. If I'm going to order a replacement on Amazon, I want to make sure that it's the exact same thermistor in terms of the sensor and in terms of the end. Other thing that's important to note is make sure you disconnect both the 110 or 120 and the 12 volt before you start farting around with this. I don't have the cover off the back of the fridge yet. But before I do try and take it off, I'm just going to disconnect the 12 volt power so that I don't electrocute myself. All right, so we're back outside the camper now. Again, I'm not going to start messing around with anything until I've got the 12 volt supply disconnected. Right now I'm just trying to physically see where it comes through. So a minute ago we were inside the camper, and there's the back of the drain hose right there. I don't know if you can see that. So the thermistor is going to be that guy right there. But what's concerning is there's some sort of insulation or gunk that they've sprayed in the hole there that might make this a little bit tricky. Also, they've snaked it up and over before it comes back down into the panel. So I'm going to have to take that into consideration if I'm going to run a new one here. So first things first, let's disconnect the battery. So we've got some good news. I was able to get whatever that goop was out of the way. And other than the insulation, it's a pretty straight shot through inside the fridge. So if I pop that grommet out on the inside of the fridge, take the clip off, sorry it's not focusing properly, we should be able to pull that through. And basically all they've done, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but the thermistor just basically comes up and they've just laid it across this tubing, and then it continues right here. This is the thermistor. You can see there's a little bit of a zip tie there, and then it just runs down into the board. So, and there's enough of an opening down there that you could even run like a piece of wire to kind of start the new thermistor and shove it through. So it shouldn't be too difficult. We've disconnected the battery now. So now what we need to do is we need to take this plastic cover off here and read our diagram to figure out where the thermistor's connecting to. Although it is a white wire, so it should be pretty obvious once we get this off. So funny story / update. I was convinced that the cover was held on by that screw back there, and because of just how it sits in relation to this panel, I could not get a screwdriver on it. So I even took a Dremel, and I don't recommend this, but very carefully cut out a notch here. Not where the panel snaps in, but just below it, thinking I could get a really long screwdriver in there. So I got a little frustrated and started just taking the panel off from the other side, thinking maybe I could just pivot it out of the way, and the whole thing just pops off. That screw does not hold the cover on. That holds the whole board in place. So, yeah. But I'm pretty sure this right here is our, where it says sensor, this is our, oh sorry, you can't even see that. That right there where it says sensor, that's the thermistor connection. So back inside the camper now. There's a little grommet. This is a Dometic fridge, so there's a little grommet here that goes into that hole in the back. I was able to remove the grommet with a flat blade screwdriver. The grommet's very flexible, so it just came right off the wire. Whew, I'm out of breath and out of shape. Spring maintenance always gets me winded. I get fat and lazy over the winter. Anyway, I'm not going to lose that grommet, so put that somewhere safe. There's the end of the sensor. That's the clip where it clips onto the fins, but you can see that that hole, which is what we're looking at outside, is more than big enough to gently feed that back out. And to feed the new one, it shouldn't be too difficult. Heck, I could even put a piece of wire, tape the sensor to the end of the wire, and snake it through. Shouldn't be an issue. So we're back in the house now. We've got a glass of ice water here with the end of the thermistor in the ice water. It's reading just over 7,400 ohms for resistance, if I'm reading that correctly. And based on the Dometic chart, this is the resistance you should be getting when the fridge is around 3 degrees Celsius. So the fact that that's in ice water and it's, whoops, I've lost my connection here, is reading that tends to suggest to me that there's definitely something wrong with this. So I'm not an expert at using a multimeter or testing resistance, but you know, it's about 11 bucks on Amazon for another thermistor, so we'll buy one and we'll check the resistance on it, and hopefully that fixes the problem. All right, so here's the new part from Amazon. I made sure that the one I got was registered for the same model of fridge as us. As you remember in the previous test, it got to around 7,400 ohms, was the most we could get out of it with the ice water. So we got our multimeter here. I'm going to switch that on. And we're going to stick the tip of the sensor in with the ice. Again, this is the new one. Now we're going to see what kind of numbers we get. Hopefully, the numbers change. So before, no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to go above 7.45. And you can see that it is continuing to climb. It's not a drastic difference, but again, I don't know that the thermistor completely quit. It just didn't seem to be registering temperatures quite right, so I guess all we can do is install this new one, run the fridge, and then get some sort of thermometer, I guess, and put it in the fridge and kind of see what temperatures we end up with. All right, so the sensor is fully reinstalled, and just to give you a synopsis of how this went, it was a little fiddly, but we made it work. So the first thing we did, other than disconnecting the power, was I started by feeding the sensor end back into this hole here. Took a little bit of twisting, a little bit of gentle pressure just to kind of convince it to go through the insulation. There was a little bit of resistance up there. But then all of a sudden, as I started pushing the wire through, you could hear the chang, the kind of clang, I should say, of it touching the grates inside the fridge. So once I had it in the fridge, next step, came inside the camper, and sure enough, it was coming through down, where's my finger? Through here. The grommet wasn't back on yet. I fed it up behind this drip tray here, and you can pull the drip tray forward if you need a little bit of space. I took this little plastic bracket then and very gently inserted the sensor. You can see the wire going down into this clip. The clip's pretty pliable, so you can pull it open a little bit and push the sensor back down inside of it. And it just slots onto the fins. And then the little rubber grommet, or plasticky rubbery grommet, whatever that's made out of. It's quite flexible. Was able to wrap that back around the cord and plug the hole. So everything in here is good to go. I've got the sensor fairly low on the fins, which should keep the temperature under control and not overcool it. Let's go outside and see what it took to connect it outside. So once we were outside, the key was to get it up and over this tubing back here. I didn't want it touching this flue, which runs on gas, because I didn't want to melt the insulation off of it. And I was very carefully able to run it across the top here. I wanted to reconnect it with a zip tie pretty close to where it had been originally. And you can see it just running down there. I've realized now it's kind of going over the pipe. Before it was a bit of a straight shot, but that shouldn't really make too much of a difference, because both wires were up against that pipe to begin with. So I don't think that'll cause too much of an issue. That's where they were originally fixed by the manufacturer. Then when we come down here, the cover's back on now, but I just gently pulled it down from behind up here. You can see the white wire back there. And then I made sure I reconnected it here where we saw on the board earlier. And you can't plug it in the wrong way around. There's only one way for it to connect. Key thing to make sure is when you're putting this plastic cover back on, if you see there's kind of bits on the sides which are a little more open, this gives you clearance for some of your wiring. So I had to make sure that those two wires, including the new sensor wire, were up high, so that when I pushed this back on, they could be cupped into this overhang and not get all pinched beside it. But everything's all snapped back together now. Everything's the way it should be. So the next step will be to put the covers back on, and we're going to run the fridge on electric, let it cool down. We'll put a thermometer in there, and let's see if this is the magic fix. Right, so moment of truth. The fridge has been plugged in for about 6 hours or so. I put just a regular old thermometer in here, and she's sitting around just about 1 degree Celsius, or about 30, what is that, 34 Fahrenheit, so that's pretty good. That's not bad at all. There's probably better thermometers to use than this. Some people will say put it in a thing of water to get a more accurate temperature, but I'm pretty happy with that. It's jumped up a little bit because I've opened the door. But let's, I guess, wait until our first camping trip of the season and see whether we continue to freeze things or not. But so far, that is looking promising. Hope the video is helpful. Give this video a thumbs up. Smash that like button, all that good stuff. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. We'll talk to you later.